afternoon again. I hope you enjoyed lunch. And okay, without further ado, because I imagine there will be again questions, so I will not waste our time and leave more space for more questions. I will start the next topic, which was requested for today. So descriptiveness, generic marks, and geographical indications in geographical terms. Okay, so let's talk briefly about descriptiveness. Actually, well, here is the definition that we have. So you cannot register at the European Union indications which serve exclusively in trade to designate kind, quality, quantity, intended purpose, value, geographical origin. Here I highlight this, or the time of production of the goods or rendering of the services, or any other characteristics which may describe these goods. So we always check, also as we were doing with non-distinctiveness, the goods and services and the mark, well, the mark in relation to goods and services and also in the perception of the public. So actually some of the examples I've given of non-distinctive marks are also descriptive. So I was saying the year 2000 for wine, for example, no? It will be descriptive and therefore it will be non-distinctive. Then concerning geographical origin, I actually have an example of which could not be registered. The EUIPO is placed in Alicante in Spain, and Alicante is a very touristic both city and region. We have, I think, in the province of Alicante, the second place the second place most visited in Spain, in the whole Spain, is in the province of Alicante, and it's called Guadalest, in case you want to check. So it's a very touristic area. So imagine that someone requests a word mark, Alicante, for touristic accommodation or entertainment related, oh, I don't know, tourism, for example, touristic services. This will not be able to be registered because it will be definitely a geographical indication. So we analyze the mark as a whole. So imagine that someone puts Alicante on a palm tree. We have many palm trees. Probably this will not help. But maybe they will put Alicante and some other distinctive words. Maybe the threshold then will be different, and maybe this mark could be accepted. Why I'm always saying maybe? It's because we examine, as I was saying, every trademark on its own. So it always depends on how the trademark is. So we examine trademarks as a whole, and then also what is registrable actually, it's marks which are suggestive or allusive. So these marks we do accept, and actually it's quite often an argument of the applicants. They say, no, my mark is not descriptive. It's allusive, it's fanciful, etc. So we have to always examine it. So there has to be a concrete and direct relation between the mark and the goods. As said, I will not give you more examples. I think our practices are similar concerning descriptiveness. So I will just like to mention here some things. So for example, multiple meanings. This is an argument we get a lot from the applicants. We send a provisional objection, provisional refusal, we can call it. And we say, look, you have just polos for clothing. And they say, yeah, but we mean just polos. It's the sport, the polo in plural, which is strange because the sport normally you use in singular, etc., etc. But we say, yeah, but polos has also another meaning, which is the shirt, the blouse. If at least one meaning is descriptive, we can refuse such mark. Then bio-mild, biological and mild, written together separate is another argument applicants use a lot, yeah, but you cannot dissect my mark. Well, we think our average consumers, as Gonzalo and myself were saying, are circumspect and well-informed, and they will dissect easily certain words. It's not always the case. Sometimes we do encounter examples which we are not so sure. So we put ourselves in the shoes of average consumer and we say, okay, this is a bit strange. Then misspellings. This is a very straightforward misspelling. Fresh with 3H. This is still recognizable as the word fresh. So then concerning abbreviations and acronyms, what do you think about these two? So I will try to wake you up now after the lunch. Would you accept these two marks, which is the Green Finance Alliance for Finance Services, but it also has at the end the acronym GFA. And also you have another one, which is ORT, Organic Red Tomatoes for Soups. What do you think, what could be our practice? Would you accept them? Would you say it's the acronym, it's not acceptable because the acronym is explained in the mark, it's clear, it's easy? Any views, any ideas? Don't be shy. There is no wrong and no right answer. Well, all answers are right because they show that you thought. No? You're still shy or asleep after coffee? Okay. So our idea is that if the acronym can be understood as the explanation, we will not allow for it because, for example, in the financial market, we often see acronyms and their explanations and so on. But do you think that in the foodstuffs, just think of your experience, no? Because you're also at the end consumers. So do you think that in the foodstuffs and beverages sectors there are many acronyms? Well, not really. So in our case, for the first example, we would and for the second example, or you will not think. And if it's explained organic red tomatoes, it's not the standard of the market, no? Okay, what else? Generic marks. And now I do need your input because when preparing the presentation, I started thinking, what are generic marks? So I would please like someone of you examiners to explain to me what are they in your practice, in your view, maybe give us an example. And I cannot continue without your help. So what are the generic marks? Come on, you must have an example. Don't tell me you don't know what they are. Yes, please. You can do it together. That's always easier.
Generic mark po. Generic marks are marks that describes the goods or services covered.
And what's the difference with descriptive mark?
Descriptive marks are marks that describe the goods and services covered.
So then what's the difference?
Yeah, the generic mark is another name of the actual goods or services covered.
Okay.
While descriptive is just an adjective of the goods and services covered.
Okay, thank you very much. Big applause to your colleague who was not shy. Thank you so much. Okay, Yeah, because I was thinking we actually use the term descriptive in this case, but we do have another ground, which is the 7.1d of our regulation, which are marks which became customary in the current language or in the established practices of, of, of the market. And it can be both word marks, like here you have weiße Seiten. This is from German. This is a word which became used. And we have some other, like, for example, in Spanish, we have páginas amarillas. I think some of you speak Spanish, but this is like yellow pages, and it has a special meaning. I think yellow pages, it's for the telephone numbers, exactly. So everyone now says, yeah, just check it in the páginas amarillas. So you know that they refer to the telephone book. In Spanish, we also have another word, which is Kleenex. Now, if you want a paper tissue, you will never say un pañuelo, de papel, which is even longer. You just say, give me a Kleenex. And Kleenex actually was a trademark, but it became generic in this case. I'm just using examples from Spanish language because we live in Spain, no? So this is more or less what I think could be something related to your marks, which is like something in between descriptive and customary words. So as I was saying, okay, geographical terms. Yes. Okay. So now the another point of my presentation is what also was the term that we wanted to discuss. So I mentioned already the example of Alicante, and what we have to consider here, this is part of our guidelines, that it's the public interest, that the sign may serve to designate geographical origin of goods or services. Such sign has to remain available. As I was saying, Alicante, someone cannot have monopoly on using the geographical indication Alicante, sorry, the geographical term Alicante. Not least because they may be an indication of the quality or other characteristics of the categories of goods concerned, and may also in various ways influence consumer preferences by, for instance, associating the goods or services with a place. So we have here two things, actually, that the geographical place can either directly give you an idea of what the goods and services are, or they can, to you as a consumer, give you an idea what they could be. So here you have Monaco, which is a case where actually what was said is that I think it was for clothing, and it was said that mm, this mark would be eliciting a favorable response. Why? Because Monaco, at least in Europe, is a synonym of something glamorous. It's a small country, very rich, with a prince. Grace Kelly was the princess, so it's like high standards. So it will give to the consumers like this idea of something luxury, of something um, okay, so what's also very relevant, it's in our guidelines, is that we do not only consider terms which actually exist right now, but for example, which can be recognized by the relevant public. So Ceylon, for example, we know that it's now Sri Lanka, but in mind of many consumers still like Ceylon tea, no? So people, it still exists in the minds of the consumers. That's quite interesting because when I was preparing this presentation, I saw this and I said, look, this is like a kind of exception because, for example, if a term is outdated, it's not anymore used in the dictionaries, we do not object to such marks. So, for example, if a word if a mark is a word which was used, for example, in 18th, 19th century, and it's in disuse right now, we will not consider that this mark is descriptive. But this is like a kind of exception, that even though Ceylon is not used anymore for long, it can still be objected, in this case, for example, for tea or some other similar products. So, the registration of geographical names as trademarks is not possible where such a geographical name is either already famous or is known for the category of goods concerned. Also, we consider if there is any association between the goods and services and the place. And also, we do a test whether the geographical term describes objective characteristics of the goods and services. So we do an assessment. So we check if this place can be a place of production of the goods, or the place where the goods were conceived and designed, the place where the services are rendered, or the place that influences consumer preferences, like the set case of Monaco. So we do some tests, let's say, and check if there can be any relation. So now, what grounds would apply in this case? Well, what I assume you already thought, descriptiveness. If a mark is descriptive in such case, it will also lack distinctive character. So looking for some interesting cases, I actually found this one. Philippines Direct is quite an it's an early case, let's say. So in this case, it was for goods in class 9 and services in classes 35 and 38. What do you think was the decision in this case? Do you think that it's clear? I will try to find also maybe what it was, what were the goods and services? Yes, apparatus for recording, transmission or reproduction of sound images, prepaid calling cards, and also class 38 telecommunication services, class 35 advertising. What do you think? Do you think that EUIPO allowed Philippines Direct for these goods and services, or rather the well-informed and circumspect consumers would think that they are actually either conceived or they are rendered in the Philippines directly? What do you think? I hear, yes, some discussions there.
I think it's descriptive, particularly with class 38, because it indicates that in terms of communication, it's direct to the Philippines.
Perfect. That's the perfect answer. Another applause for the colleague. Yes, indeed. That was basically the reasoning of the examiner of the EUIPO. But what we should also take into account is another ground for refusal, which actually was not here listed in our presentation, but I thought it would be interesting to show, which is the deceptive character. Actually, such trademarks can also deceive an applicant. These cases are very rare, but there is some case law. So for example, in our guidelines, I just will talk briefly, like imagine mark, which definitely will be descriptive, but let's say it's made in the USA for clothing, no? Okay, we consider the good faith of the applicant. So if they say that the goods are made in somehow in the mark it's said, maybe it's a figurative, nicely figurative mark, but it says made in the USA, we assume good faith that they really do the goods thing. But imagine that the mark says somewhere made in the USA, but then in the list of goods and services, you have clothing made in I don't know, Bangladesh, for example, then we would have to object as examiners saying, come on, you're deceiving people, because in the list of goods, you say one country, but in the mark, you say something different. So always there is something like that to be in mind. Another case, which I think is quite interesting in our guidelines, is that, for example, trademark which is Alessandro Peretti. What would you think? Italiano? No, no. Actually, we do not, and then the goods say these are again goods made in Spain, for example. Well, we will not probably raise any objection because, well, they can be made, but the owner is Italian, so we are not considering these cases as deceptive. But there was actually a case of Port Charlotte. I had even to check. So this is, you see, this is the test we are doing. I said, Port Charlotte, we always learn about this in our guidelines. It is, we use it in our trainings, but what's Port Charlotte? So it seems it's like a district part for census reasons in Florida, and it's famous for its entertainment parts. And it was applied for whiskey. So definitely, first it was objected by the office, but then even it went to the court, and court said, no, come on. Nobody knows really what Port Charlotte is. Maybe the only people who live there, and it's not even famous for beverages. So you cannot object for that. And this was finally accepted. But we do not have so many cases. One case which I would like to say, also it's quite a recent case. And actually, when I was preparing this presentation, even the reference person told me, be careful because you're talking in general about absolute grounds, but this is a cancellation case. But in our case, cancellation can be based on absolute grounds. So what happened here? It was a British company. They have supermarkets, which are called Iceland. So you have here the word mark and the figurative mark. So they requested the mark for a range of goods and services. And then the country, Iceland, filed for a cancellation. Actually, that mark, these two marks were accepted based on absolute grounds because Iceland has also different meanings. And back then it was not considered that it could somehow have a direct link with the country. But then the country said, it's my name. And a supermarket is trying to monopolize it. So there was a quite long, it went to the general court, and the general court upheld the decision of the EUIPO Grand Board of Appeal. So it did not go to any of the, because we have several boards of appeal, but then it went to the Grand Board. So it was really discussed and high level of our second instance. What happened here? Okay, so I said that Iceland said, we want to cancel this mark. So in the judgment published now, July 16, 2025, the General Court stated that the sign may be refused registration on the basis that it is descriptive under Article 7.1c, so descriptiveness, if the geographical name applied for it is associated in mind of the relevant public with germane category of goods and services, or it is reasonable to assume that such an association may come to be. So there were different goods and services, which in this case, court said, yeah, but they can maybe, I don't know, tomatoes are not famous in Iceland, but they are still growing tomatoes. So the relevant public may think that they come from this country. So these marks are currently in the process of being cancelled. So again, what we were talking here is the Article 7.2. So we have to take into account that we work in the 23 languages of the European Union, and also what we already discussed and the colleague posed questions. Acquired distinctiveness is not only for the lack of distinctiveness ground, but it also applies for descriptive marks, which are inherently descriptive, and those which we think became generic. So now, geographical terms versus GIs. I was correcting myself because sometimes I was trying to say geographical Indian. I was saying, no, geographical terms. Alicante is a geographical term. But then we have some geographical indications. So what are the geographical indications? In our understanding, these refer to any geographical term refers to any geographical indication, while protected geographical indication and protected designation of appellation of origin are used only in the context of specific legislation protecting them. So designations of origin and geographical indication protected under specific EU regulations are dealt with under Article 7.1J of our regulation. So here you have a little bit of the scheme of geographical indications. The EUIPO works together with the European Commission. Right now we are working on geographical indications for foodstuffs and beverages, and shortly in the coming months we will also deal with the geographical indications of craft. So we are doing a lot of promotion. We are having a special group of experts in our office who will deal with them. I'm not part of it, so if you have very technical and question, then I will have to probably consult with my colleagues, and we can give you later the reply. So we do a lot of cooperation. We do webinars, conferences. We have this, I told you before, we have an ICE group. For geographical indications, we have so-called JICE group. We are updating our guidelines, and we have a GI view database, which is like all our databases that we have free of charge. Anyone can check it. And here you have the two logos of our geographical indications and protected indications. So I invite you to check this. And here you can see, for example, very famous one, Champagne, product wine, country of geographical indication, France, and the regulation which applies. So an idea, even though this presentation is for AG, this is also quite relevant. We will not accept from the classification point of view anymore, for example, class 33, tequila or champagne, because they are listed in GI view. They are geographical indications. So what we request the applicants, if we find geographical indications in the list, we request them to state tequila, in brackets GI, agave spirit drinks, champagne, GI, wine. Why we request it like that? Because we extracted from the GI view. It's very relevant that the correct name is stated in the list of goods and services. But it's not only, in this case, for example, alcoholic beverages. We have sometimes in other classes some other terms. With, for example, someone says champagne bucket. We ask this person to change, in this case, to ice bucket or wine bucket or whatever. So they cannot use, or I don't know, a restaurant, a wine shop, champagne wine shop. They cannot use it in class 43. They would have to just leave a wine shop. So here again, I was saying Article 7.1J. In this case, the mark was Buckley Irish Whiskey. So the applicant had in class 33 spirits, beverages, distilled spirits. So we requested them to make a limitation of the goods and services. Sorry, I already changed the slide, so I will read it. There was an objection to this, And the applicant, we normally tell them in such cases how they can limit the list of goods and services, and we ask them to limit this the list that you've seen before to Irish whiskey, Yuske Bat Fajernach, Irish whiskey, GI whiskey. Why like this? Because this is the whole name of the geographical indication, which is in the GI view. So this is all from my side, because concerning the relative grounds on GIs, I would like to give the floor to our relative grounds expert, Christina, who will continue.